An empty Wembley Stadium where a small group of officials watched the flame handed to Sir Steve Redgrave. This subdued ceremony was not the celebration China had hoped for. And no sooner had he carried the torch out of the stadium than the trouble began. Demonstrators tried to board the waiting bus and had to be wrestled away by the police.
Stop the torch going into Tibet, please! Gordon Brown, I urge you, stop the torch going into Tibet!
So the lady carrying the torch.
Within minutes of the runners setting off through London streets, a whole series of demonstrators tried to disrupt the relay. One used a fire extinguisher. Another tried to snatch the torch from former Blue Peter presenter Connie Huck.
Oh! Someone, as I speak, someone has tried to grab the torch from Connie Huck, the former Blue Peter presenter. A man has tried to grab the torch. He's been hauled to the ground by police officers. He did have his hands on the torch.
With 2 rings of protection, Chinese officials inside, Metropolitan Police outside, the torch battled through. But there were hundreds of demonstrators waiting on the route ahead.
We can argue about a sporting and a political issue, but this is a moral issue. We're talking about torture, we're talking about lack of human rights. That's more important than politics, and that's more important than sport.
The Chinese ambassador took the torch through Chinatown. It wasn't what was planned, but then the day wasn't going the way it was intended. It was a tour of London's landmarks. In Trafalgar Square, the torch took the plinth, the protesters the fountains. And it was the demonstrators' message, not China's, that was being beamed out to the world. Along Whitehall, pro- and anti-Chinese demonstrators came face to face. Groups of Chinese students have been organised by supporters of the Games.
It's a student from China, and we are Chinese, and we are proud of our country hosting the Olympics in Beijing this year.
It's our right to proud of my own country. They have no business to stop us to wave our own flag.
But as the torch approached Downing Street, there were repeated scuffles between police and demonstrators. The torch itself was all but invisible as hundreds jeered its passage. The point of parading it in public was lost. Inside the security cordon of Downing Street, Gordon Brown was on hand to watch the torch being transferred. But although he shook hands with everyone, he didn't touch the torch itself. The Olympics minister said it would be a great mistake not to have gone ahead with the relay.
The welcome of the Olympic torch to London is not the same as condoning the human rights regime in China or condoning the treatment of Tibet.
Paula Radcliffe, the marathon runner, took the torch out to the east of London, to the site where the 2012 Olympics will be held. By now, the protection for the torch had been stepped up. But many of those who carried the torch said they had sympathy with the protesters. They saw the day as an object lesson in democratic protest, one China might learn from.
It's our nature of being very open within this country that protesters can make their points, and as an athlete I'm pleased that that's happening.
The yachtswoman Dame Helen MacArthur carried the torch downriver to the O2 Dome, where many prominent supporters of the Olympic movement were waiting, among them Princess Anne and London's Mayor Ken Livingstone. For many of those involved, the dilemma posed today could be answered with one question. Who would benefit most from the publicity surrounding this event? The Chinese government or those who oppose it? Brian Hanrahan, BBC News.